The best pro-life movie ever made, coming up on The Rick Altizer Show.
From Nashville, Tennessee, Music City, USA, and the home of hot chicken, it's The Rick Altizer Show. Sit back, buckle up. Rick will talk with the movers, shakers, and creators who put Christ in Christian entertainment. He's a man who's clear so the world can hear. Here's Rick Altizer.
Well, thanks for joining me today. Today is part 2 of my interview with Tracy Robinson. Tracy is an amazing director, also a producer and a writer and an editor, and she made a movie that I am going to go on record and say is the best pro-life movie ever made. It's called The Matter of Life. I watched it with my wife, and we were blown away. It is amazing. Just the way she told the story and the way it captured you, and oh, how powerful this thing was. This is a life-changing movie. Anyway, I could go on, Tracy. And so Tracy was with us last week. If you missed that, you can go to my website, rickaltizer.com, or any place where podcasts are being played, and you can hear that and catch up. And her movie is going to be in theaters May 16th and May 17th. So I highly encourage you to go see it. Tracy, thanks for coming back on the show.
Thanks for having me, Rick.
What do you think about the accolades I'm giving you, huh?
I love it. Thank you so much for those words.
I wanted to let everyone know I'm not getting paid or by anybody to say this.
I know.
Nobody's telling me to say it.
I'll send you the check in the mail next week.
Right. I mean, nobody's paying me or saying anything. This is absolutely, we were just so blown away with how powerful this film was. I mean, first off, it's such an amazing topic. Is an unborn baby, is that a human being or not? Is it alive or not? And that's the issue. It is the matter of life. And the way you told the story, I mean, we've all seen things and heard things about it from all different types of perspectives, from people who are angry and upset, and you see all the anger and frustration in our culture over this issue. And the way you told this was so well done, so balanced, and just came in, with such a balanced view. Let's talk a little bit about, as a filmmaker, telling a balanced story. What were some of the tricks and some of the challenges you had and some of your own convictions in telling this in a way that didn't come off like it was a sledgehammer, but man, is it powerful. And I think it's more powerful because of the way you told it. It is a more powerful a way to tell it. Tell me a little bit about your process of that.
Yeah, well, I wanted to not beat people over the head who had an opposing point of view. I wanted it to be not a documentary that was preaching to the choir. And I wanted to address the very understandable and very fair questions that a lot of people have about abortion, like the woman's circumstances, the rape exception, for example. And I didn't want to leave those things out, and I didn't want to condemn the so-called other side of this issue. I wanted to make a movie that kind of just rose up from all the name calling and the just all the peripheral stuff, and really hit the heart of this message, which is, are the unborn one of us? And that's the slogan of the film, are the unborn one of us? And obviously we as pro-lifers know, yes, the unborn are one of us. These people are individual persons deserving of life and protection. But in our laws, we learn in the film, they're not treated as such. They're not treated as persons under the law in the case of abortion. So I wanted to unravel that. I didn't want to just sort of say that, all of us, like just say it. I wanted people to kind of discover that for themselves, because I know, those are my favorite documentaries, is the ones that kind of unravel and help the audience use their own observation and their own participation to just figure this out. So, yeah.
Amazing. Yes, that's great. So can we talk about some of the wrong information that's out there on the abortion issue. There's some stuff out there that's, I would say, probably just deceptive because it's such a lucrative business. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, a lot of women who find themselves in an unexpected pregnancy, maybe they visit the Planned Parenthood, their local Planned Parenthood, and they're often, the story that I hear from so many people is that they were told it's just a clump of cells. And obviously the science of embryology disproves that. It's not a clump of cells. There's very obvious forms of life at a very early stage in the pregnancy. So I wanted to dispel that and invite people to look at the humanity of the unborn child, invite people to humanize the unborn child. And then this other myth is I wanted to tell people the business model of Planned Parenthood. I wanted to unravel that for people because it was so surprising to me when I learned about the real inner workings of Planned Parenthood and what their real agenda is. I was blown away by that as someone who's always had this kind of fuzzy view of Planned Parenthood being a organization that helps women. And so the second thing that was really important for me was to show people the truth about Planned Parenthood. And we go briefly into that narrative in the film where we show the business model of Planned Parenthood and what they're really about. That was a revelation for me when I was first researching was, wow, this is the actual truth about Planned Parenthood. I always thought that they were all about helping women and this organization that was about healthcare, but there's a veneer there that I think people really deserve, especially young people, deserve to know. And then thirdly, we go into the feminism movement and just how we got into this point of contention in our society in the first place. We tell the story of the big players that were instruments in legalizing abortion and then their conversion story later, which is just astounding. So that's what I really wanted to bring people to was, look, this hasn't always been so commonly accepted in American society. Look at the early feminists and how they condemned abortion. They thought it was degrading to women. So I wanted to unravel that truth to people and give them that perspective.
And then also, you say in the film, 4 out of 10 women, 40% of the women who've had abortions were attending church the month they became pregnant. And so then also knowing then that you have a lot of women who have abortions, 40% of them are churchgoers. So then obviously you say that you had this mission to reach the Christian audience. Can we talk then about also including that in your story and how that shaped the way you told the story?
Yeah, that was a epiphany that I had midway through. I always knew that my audience was going to be Christians. Those are the people that are going to show up and watch the movie. I knew there were a lot of Christians in my shoes who had never heard the message before, that kind of thing, young people. But it was really an astounding thing for me to learn that statistic with 4 in 10 women who've had an abortion were churchgoers in the month they became pregnant. And I also learned how disengaged the church in America actually is, especially the Protestant church, on this issue. And understandably, it's a very sensitive, personal topic. People don't want to offend anybody. They don't want to appear like they're on a political side or anything like that. Churches are all about ministering the gospel. But I realized what a problem it really is, that this problem is not being addressed, and it's leading to, a very similar number of church-going women compared to the secular culture getting abortions. So this silence is kind of it's just sort of a revolving cycle of not talking about it, women getting abortions, and then continuing to not talk about it because there's so many in your congregation that have had abortions. And so I really feel like this movie is a rally cry to the church to be the hands and feet of Jesus and to rescue women in that situation and their babies. So
how do you talk to a Christian woman who's in church who had an abortion, who sees this film, and she hears about the film, and there's so much guilt associated with it. They don't want to talk about the subject. They don't want to look at it. It's too painful. How do you talk to her right now?
That's a great question. Well, some of the biggest advocates for the film are women who've had abortions in their past. They are usually people that have healed already. They have gone through a healing journey of their own, and then they see this movie and realize what an opportunity it is to prevent pain for others, to educate people and tell them, abortion is wrong and look at the life in the womb. But on the other hand, there have been people who have who've seen the movie in a group showing or what have you, and I know that they maybe have not wrestled with it yet. And so the message that I usually leave with them at the end is that there's no sin too great that Jesus can't heal, can't forgive. He took the penalty of our sins so that we don't have to carry that burden on ourselves any longer. Obviously, we recognize it as a sin, and so does Jesus. But in his love and forgiveness and the sacrifice that he made on the cross, he takes that sin away from us. We also point people to resources where they can join, Bible studies or get counsel or get on the phone with someone. We have a resource page on our website, matteroflife.org/take action, where people can go and look for just community resources and ways to get involved. One of those things is just different healing ministries. So I didn't want to leave that out of our added value content. So that's something that's really important.
Yes. And so you're listening to the Rick Altizer Show on Bot Radio. My guest today is director Tracy Robinson. We're talking about her new movie, The Matter of Life. As I have said, it's an amazing film, the best pro-life film I've ever seen. And it's going to be in theaters May the 16th and the 17th. And I highly, highly recommend this. My wife and I watched this movie together and loved it. Highly recommend going and getting tickets to see this. And buying a ticket is an important way to support this film and Christian films. As a Christian filmmaker, it's not cheap to make these things. They're not cheap. They're expensive, and we need support to keep making them. I had a filmmaker once, Tracy, tell me that documentary filmmaking is an expensive hobby. And so
True.
I mean, and it really, if you want filmmakers to keep making amazing content, people have to support it. I mean, that's just the way it is. Tracy did a lot of this out of her own pocket, and you just can't keep doing that. So anyway, so you've had experience as an editor, a film editor. Obviously, that's so apparent in the way this was edited. It was so well done. Great job, by the way, on the editing. And writing is similar to editing, especially in a documentary. They're kind of hand in hand in a lot of ways. But directing and producing, those are different roles for you completely. So talk a little bit about what it was like shifting from not only just being a writer and an editor, but now directing and producing as well. I mean, you're wearing a lot of hats now. Talk a little bit about that, some of the things you learned and some of the challenges.
Yeah, well, the directing and producing was just sort of my way of attaining footage in order to edit the footage. I don't consider myself a producer. But I did a lot of producer things in order to, make this vision happen. I had some producers that came on board throughout the process that worked out a lot of the logistics. And I had an amazing producer for my Chicago shoot, the first shoot that I did. We had a small crew, but he got everything done and everybody there and the gear there and the camera there. But then it was mostly me after that. And just really supportive friends along the way. For the most part, it was me and one other person filming. We would go on travel and get these interviews or get the B-roll that we needed. So it's just your common everyday just scheduling or budgeting and figuring out what you need and just going and doing it. But my real goal was just get that footage so that I could make that movie.
But knowing too, having written it, you kind of knew the footage you needed to get, or you knew what you wanted there. But just what was this new as far as lighting and camera angles and where the talent sits, the person being interviewed, where they're going to sit and how you frame it. Was that something? Were you involved in that as well, or was it the person you brought with you? Was he handling all that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's my background is documentaries. And so there's just a lot of experience that I've had over the years setting up interviews. My colleague, my director of photography, Tim Gonzalez, he is the one that volunteered a lot of his time to go help me shoot these. And he brought his lights and we just sort of worked that out together, used available light a lot of the times with lights. And so, and then we would set up we would have these lavalier mics that we used. We didn't have a dedicated audio person. So it was just really the two of us, if not me. Sometimes it was just me by myself.
Wow.
But
yeah, I've done so much of that. It was not a
fancy production. Yeah.
I've done so much of that where you just have to do everything and you're just worn
it's doable.
out. Oh,
yes. Yeah. It's not a sustainable process to do all the time. It's always better to have a bigger crew, obviously, but, we made it work though. Yeah.
Well, it was a great job. It's a great job. Everything was great. And
Thank you.
The interviews were so good. It looked great. But again, as I said last week, how it looks and how it sounds, those are important, but just nowhere near as important as the storytelling. Story is king, and especially in a documentary, it has to be story-driven. And, oh, man, this thing just, from the minute it started to all the way through, you didn't get bored, you didn't lose interest, and it did build. It built, and you got deeper and deeper into the story, and it's very informative, but man, it connected emotionally, too. You had those moments of those stories of that young woman whose dad did not want her to have the baby and was not supportive, and you could just see the pain in her story, and so those kind of things really draw you in. Now, I did notice at the end, where you started showing things that were difficult to see, and as a matter of fact, my wife left the room because she couldn't handle, that kind of stuff. She's not able to handle. And at the very end, and you say, we're about to show some things that you might find disturbing for the next minute. You can close your eyes if you want to, but you show what an abortion is, which I think is important to do. Talk about the decision to do that, because I know you had to go back and forth on that. Or was that something that from day one is like, nope, we're doing this. We're showing that.
Yeah, it was important on day one. Speaking of your friend Scott Klusendorf, I was very inspired by his analogy of why it's important to show imagery. I would hear his talks on YouTube, and then I would go to some of his talks, and he had this story of Emmett Till that he would use, and I thought it was such a great way to set up the reason we need to look at abortion imagery. We need to show it. And it's because it's the truth. this is what abortion is and this is what abortion does. And it's a violent act against a person. And abortion imagery very much looks like that. It's very evident. But Scott Klusendorf gives such a great analogy with this Emmett Till story. In 1955 in the South, this boy gets murdered by two racist white men after he makes a comment. The boy makes a comment to a white lady, and later on just gets so brutally murdered. And the body is sent back to the mother of the boy, and she decides to have an open casket funeral, which was a very controversial decision on her part back then. The news media went ballistic, as he says, and they said, "You can't do that. Do you understand the condition your boy is in?" And she says, "I know, but I want the whole world to see what they did to my boy." And so that's really the setup in the film for this abortion imagery. And I think it's such a valuable analogy that Scott gives to set this up and why it's important to look if you can.
And and it was just something my wife wasn't able to see, but there's no graphic audio. I mean, you can close your eyes for that minute for people who can't. But for me, I thought it was so powerful and life-changing. But it's interesting, again, the way you craft the story, you don't start out with that. And it's not gratuitous. You're not throwing it all over the place. It's very well done, and it's towards the end of the movie after you've kind of built your story and built your case, and kind of started with what abortion? What is it? What's the problem, and what is the issue here? And you kind of take a big, wide scope of it, looking at the issue, hearing what everybody has to say about it, and then start drilling down to the end of the movie where we're seeing what it is. And wow, was it powerful. It was life-changing. Again, we're talking about the movie, The Matter of Life. It's going to be in theaters May 16th and 17th. That's it, 7 p.m., and it's those 2 nights only. You can get information by going to matteroflife.org or thematteroflife.org. Either one of those will work, matteroflife.org, and find a theater near you. And man, Tracy, this has just been such a great conversation. Talk about what you kind of your hopes are for the film. What you're hoping the film will do.
Thank you for asking. I really hope that the seats in the theaters are crowded, that every theater is filled. I really pray and hope that it saves a lot of babies, that young people will see this who are in that vulnerable age range, and they'll remember this movie and remember forever that they would never commit an abortion, that they would never go and get an abortion. Like, that would just never be an option for them. So I hope it saves a lot of babies in that regard. And I hope that it's a rally cry for the church, that church people, that Christians really take a stand, and not only take a stand, but they become a loving support and a compassionate support for a woman in crisis. And I would love for this movie to just really do a lot of damage to the abortion industry. So I have a lot of high hopes for it.
Amazing. And how people who maybe want to do something, to take action, what can, like if we wanted to give to help, what's the best way? What's the best way to give and to help in this issue?
Well, thank you for asking. You can go to matteroflife.org/donate. And then we also have an ambassador program where you can sign up to receive handouts to spread the word in your community. And I encourage people to go to Fathom Events or go follow the link to the ticketing and search for a theater in your area and find out if it's playing at a theater near you, so you can spread the word.
And bring some friends, bring some friends
with you.
Bring some friends. Talk to your church group. It's a very important movie to see. It's a life-changing movie. And, Tracy, thanks for being on the show. Again, you just made the definitive pro-life movie. And I really do pray that this gets out and people get a chance to see it.
Thank you so much, Rick. I appreciate it.
And it's great having you on the show. And again, that's May 16th and 17th at a theater near you. Go to matteroflife.org to get information. Thanks, Tracy, for being on the show.
Thank you.
If there's a show you've missed, you can go to my website, rickaltizer.com, and catch up. Or you can listen to my podcast in iTunes or wherever you hear your podcasts. Just search for The Rick Altizer Show. Altizer is spelled Altizer. I want to thank you for listening. Hey, would you tell a friend about this show and share the love? Be sure to check us out again next week as we discuss how we communicate the gospel through media to our culture. Let's be clear so the world can hear. I'll talk to you next week. Thanks for listening.